Steven Seagal was the immovable force of late 1980s and early 1990s action cinema, a man whose very presence on screen felt like a promise that justice was about to be served. His breakout role in Under Siege turned him into a global box office sensation. Seagal didn't just play strong characters, he radiated strength. He was quiet, restrained, and brutally efficient. The kind of man whose silence carried more threat than another actor's monologue. But behind that tough exterior was a man with scars far deeper than any fight scene. 3 marriages collapsed. A career that once stood atop Hollywood crumbled into obscurity. And now, at 71 years old, Seagal faces a twilight chapter filled with solitude and reflection. The question remains, what is left when the applause fades? What truths still weigh on a man once seen as indestructible? Long before cameras and red carpets, Seagal's greatest struggle was survival itself. Stephen Frederick Seagal was born on April 10, 1952, in Lansing, Michigan. His father, Samuel, worked as a math teacher. His mother, Patricia, supported the family as a medical technician. Money was tight, but love and sacrifice were never in short supply. Stephen, however, was frail. Childhood asthma wrapped around him like a cruel shadow. His nights were measured in shallow, labored breaths, with his worried mother pacing the floor, fearing each one could be his last. He would press his forehead to the window, watching other children run freely outside, longing for lungs that would let him join them. By 1957, at just 5 years old, his parents made a life-altering decision. Michigan's winters were strangling their son, so they packed up and moved west to Fullerton, California. There, in the warmth of the Pacific climate, Stephen's breathing eased. For the first time, he felt air fill his chest without fear. That moment of relief planted a seed. Strength would not be a dream. It would be his mission. That mission carried him across the ocean. In 1974, at age 22, Stephen traveled to Japan. At that time, the dojos of Aikido were sacred, guarded spaces that rarely opened their doors to outsiders. For an American, it wasn't a shortcut to prestige. It was a mark against you. Respect had to be earned. Day after day, Seagal was slammed onto the tatami mats. His body ached. His spirit was tested, but he never broke. Slowly, his technique sharpened, his movements flowed, and the outsider who once drew suspicion began to gain respect. Eventually, he earned the rare honor of becoming an instructor. It was also in Japan that he met Miyako Fujitani, the daughter of a respected Aikido master in Osaka. Miyako herself was a black belt and teacher. Through her, Seagal not only found love but also acceptance into a tradition few Westerners ever touched. Together, they built a life and welcomed 2 children. For the frail boy who once struggled just to breathe, standing as a teacher among Japanese masters was victory carved in bruise and bone, but ambition rarely rests. By the early 1980s, Seagal felt the walls of the dojo were too small for the fire inside him. He returned to the United States with Aikido in his blood and dreams larger than any mat could contain. In 1983, at age 31, he opened a dojo in West Hollywood with his partner, Haruo Matsuoka. It wasn't glamorous. The mats were often empty. Rent notices piled up. Nights were spent sweeping floors under buzzing fluorescent lights. Some students tried a class and left, dismissing Aikido as little more than dance moves. To survive, Seagal picked up work behind the camera, coordinating fight scenes for films like The Challenge, 1982, and the James Bond film Never Say Never Again, 1983. But he longed to show the world what he could do, not as a coach, but as the star. That chance came in 1988. At age 36, Seagal headlined Above the Law. The fights weren't flashy. They were sharp, brutal, and undeniably real. Every throw and lock came from years of practice. Audiences noticed. Hollywood noticed. And just like that, a new action star was born. The hits landed fast. Hard to Kill, 1990, Marked for Death, 1990, and Out for Justice, 1991. Seagal played the silent avenger, stoic, intimidating, and deadly. Then, in 1992, came the masterpiece, Under Siege, as Casey Ryback, the ex-Navy SEAL turned cook who single-handedly takes back the USS Missouri from terrorists. Seagal gave audiences a mix of suspense and fury. The film grossed more than $150 million worldwide, sealing his place alongside Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Van Damme. For a brief, shining moment, Steven Seagal was untouchable, but Hollywood glory is fragile. By 1994, Seagal directed On Deadly Ground, a film loaded with his personal passion for the environment. It was his attempt to say something bigger than explosions and gunfights. Instead, critics tore it apart, and audiences stayed away. He pressed on with Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, 1995, and Executive Decision, 1996. But the momentum was fading. Soon his films stopped reaching theaters altogether, relegated instead to DVD shelves and bargain bins. For a man who had once commanded box offices across the globe, this was devastating. "I've known pain since I was a boy," Seagal later admitted, "but nothing hurt like watching everything I built slip away." When Hollywood no longer gave him space, Seagal turned to music, a love that had been with him since boyhood. In 2005, he released Songs from the Crystal Cave, followed by Mojo Priest in 2006. They weren't meant as gimmicks. They were sincere, bluesy expressions of his heart. Critics mocked him. Late-night comedians sneered. But Seagal kept playing, sometimes to small rooms, because for him, music was survival, not spectacle. He also chased business ventures. A video game titled Deadly Honor was canceled before release. His own energy drink disappeared from shelves. Fragrances and martial arts collectibles came and went. The hardest blow came from real estate. A Tennessee mansion once valued at $3.9 million eventually sold for barely $500,000. For Seagal, it wasn't just financial, it was personal. A monument to success crumbled before his eyes. Seagal's personal life was no less stormy. In 1974, he married Miyako Fujitani in Japan. They had 2 children, but when Seagal returned to the U.S., the distance proved fatal to the marriage. "I wanted the world," he admitted years later. "But in chasing it, I lost the people who mattered most." He briefly married actress Adrienne LaRussa, but it ended almost as quickly as it began. Then came his most famous relationship, with actress Kelly LeBrock. For a time, it was the Hollywood fairy tale, the action star, and the screen siren. They had 3 children together, and for years their home looked happy. But whispers of infidelity eroded trust. By 1994, as his career faltered, so did the marriage. The divorce was painful, public, and brutal. Seagal admitted quietly, "I lost things I can never get back." In the 2000s, however, he found something steadier. He met Erdenatuya Elabatsuk, a Mongolian-born dancer who had first worked as his translator. She saw the man behind the myth. They married, and together they had a son, Kunzang. Across his life, Seagal has fathered 7 children and is now a grandfather. In Ella, he found not glamour but peace. But no marriage, no money, no fame can stop the clock. Years of punishing martial arts and stunts took their toll. By his 50s, Seagal's movements slowed. The snap of his throws softened into cautious arcs. Directors adjusted camera angles. Stunt teams carried more of the load. Behind closed doors, the truth was harsher. Heat pads before dawn, stretches in the dark, careful steps down staircases, and the quiet groan when lowering into a chair. "Every step I take now," he once said, "I remember the battles that put me here." Now in his 70s, Steven Seagal lives in Arizona in a fortress-like estate fitted with bulletproof glass, samurai statues, and an infinity pool that spills into the desert horizon. Once he owned a Tennessee mansion valued at $3.9 million, sold for barely $500,000. His net worth today hovers around $14 million, less than some of his peers, but enough for peace. His garage still holds relics of his glory days. A 1973 Mustang with a rebellious growl, a 1987 Chevrolet Caprice, a rare Jaguar XJ220, and a Mercedes GLE. They aren't just cars, they're memories of a life once lived at full throttle. But more important than possessions is presence. With Elle and their son Kunzang, Seagal has embraced a quieter rhythm. He meditates, practices martial arts lightly, and eats with more discipline. Evenings are no longer red carpets, but family dinners. The mirror shows an older man, lines etched deep, body heavier, speed gone, but the spirit still intact. What do we take from Steven Seagal's story? Not gossip, not scandal, something deeper. His rise was improbable. His fall was painful. His survival through family, music, business, and the humility of aging is its own kind of victory. From the frail boy in Lansing gasping for breath, to the foreigner in Japan fighting for respect, to the Hollywood giant who once stood shoulder to shoulder with legends, to the elder who now values peace over power, his story is a mirror for us all. Glory fades. Family endures. Health is the one wealth you only realize when it's gone. And the fiercest battles are never fought on screen. They're fought at the kitchen table, in the living room, among the people who truly matter. If Steven Seagal once lit up your movie nights, which film of his still lingers in your memory? Which fight scene still makes your pulse race? Share your thoughts, and perhaps leave a quiet salute to a warrior who was, and still is, unforgettable.